The Dark Knight is hailed as a gritty, realistic masterpiece, but look a little closer and you'll find it's brimming with ironic humor. In this video, I'm going to reveal how Gotham is blind to Harvey Dent's true character, how inept Gotham is at stopping the Joker, and why we don't notice the irony hidden in plain sight. By the end, not only will you see The Dark Knight in a new light, but you'll gain a sharper eye for spotting hidden irony in other films too. So let's dive in, starting with Gotham's misplaced reverence of Harvey Dent. When we first meet Harvey, he uses what we later discover is a trick coin to cheat his girlfriend Rachel out of taking the lead in Maroni's trial, and casually drops the fact that he used that coin to land a date with her in the first place. When Rachel learns this, rather than get upset that her boyfriend has been dishonest and manipulative, she instead decides she wants to marry him.
And my answer is yes.
But Rachel isn't the only one who conveniently ignores his immorality. When Harvey meets with Batman and Gordon, he asks Batman to kidnap a man from China. Rather than recognize Harvey as the international terrorist he now aspires to be, Batman takes this as a sign that Harvey is truly a hero and happily does the deed for him. But one abduction isn't enough to satisfy Harvey. After Gordon takes a bullet for the mayor, Harvey decides the only sensible recourse is to kidnap a paranoid schizophrenic and threaten him with death. When Batman discovers that District Attorney Dent is now personally committing felonies himself, he still insists that Harvey is a symbol of hope, as opposed to a deranged psychopath harassing the mentally ill. And speaking of deranged, the next day Harvey decides to lie to all of Gotham by pretending to be Batman, who is wanted by the police for, among other things, attempted murder. When Batman blows Harvey's cover by showing up while Harvey is in custody, Gotham decides not to question Harvey's honesty and instead doubles down on its admiration for him.
How does it feel to be the biggest hero in Gotham?
Even when Harvey becomes Two-Face and goes on a killing spree, Batman and Gordon still scramble to protect his image, rather than face the fact that he was never a virtuous hero to begin with. Taking on the mob is all well and good, but that does not excuse cheating, terrorism, kidnapping, attempted murder, and purposely deceiving the public. How ironic that the man Gotham regards as the best of them was actually a lying, manipulative terrorist who became a killer because a psychopathic clown in a nurse's outfit told him to.
Hi.
Of course, Harvey Dent's glorification isn't the only example of Gotham ironically embracing blind ignorance, because the greatest irony of all is that the Joker makes it very easy to stop him, but nobody does. Take the opening scene where he robs the bank. The Joker arranges for each of his accomplices to kill each other, even though he'll need accomplices later for everything else he does, but then turns his back on one of them, which gives the man a clear shot at killing him and taking all the money for himself. Instead of just shooting him, he decides to have a polite chat and then earn himself a Darwin Award by letting himself get hit by a school bus. With his partners dead and the stolen money loaded onto the bus, rather than just leave, the Joker decides to show everybody in the bank what he looks like and then drives away in an extremely conspicuous vehicle. Neither the bus driver he pulls in front of, nor any pedestrian witnessing a clown driving a school bus out of the crashed wall of a bank in the middle of the afternoon informs the police where he is. But it's not just civilians turning a blind eye. Both Maroni and the Chechen unrealistically forgive the Joker for stealing $68 million from them and hire him to murder Batman, even though his reputation for murder is specifically limited to only killing the people he works with. And the blind trust doesn't stop there. When the Joker hangs a Batman impersonator out the mayor's window, the filmmakers omitted the scene of a clown dragging a corpse in a Batman costume through a busy government building during normal work hours. And even though people must have seen, nobody decides to alert the authorities. Then again, alerting the authorities might be pointless, considering that Gotham's finest are not suspicious of a man with extremely recognizable facial scars carrying a rifle in a sea of policemen, and somehow don't catch him after he tries to shoot the mayor right in front of them. Hell, they even willingly line up to get killed by him when they divert their convoy into an obvious trap rather than just turn on their sirens and drive around the burning fire truck since there's literally no traffic. But it's not just the police who are inept. The Joker stands in the middle of the road and offers Batman a free shot at flattening him into roadkill. And Batman decides he'd sooner suffer a motorcycle accident. On the bright side, this does lead to Gordon putting a gun to his head. But rather than shoot him for murdering a slew of police officers, Gordon instead leaves him unhandcuffed with an unarmed officer he can overpower. As if that wasn't dim-witted enough, the Joker's henchmen see the Joker burning their paycheck right in front of them, and they decide not to shoot him even though he has his back turned. Even worse, after the Joker blows up Rachel and disfigures Harvey, he puts a loaded gun in Harvey's hand and points it at his own head, and Harvey doesn't pull the trigger, opting instead to shoot a random driver of a car he's riding in while it's still in motion, and threaten a child because he doesn't really like the kid's father very much. But Harvey isn't the only one with a soft spot for the Joker, since Gotham General's staff and patients must have seen him loading explosives into every room of the hospital, yet decide not to report it, presumably because they assume his reasons for blowing the place up are valid. Apparently, the citizens and criminals on the two ferries share the same sentiment, as rather than try to save themselves, they decide to allow the Joker to rack up the highest body count he can. Maybe dying at the hands of a clown is some kind of honor in Gotham City. Speaking of honor, when Batman has the chance to let the Joker plummet to his death after throwing him off a building, he chooses to save him at the last second and leave him with the police, because that went really well last time. And even though Batman could pin Harvey's downfall on the Joker, which everyone in Gotham would readily believe, he decides to take the heat himself, even though it's far less convincing. So, to recap, civilians witness him committing crimes but don't call the police, the mob works with him despite his habit of killing his partners, the police are incapable of seeing him even when they're surrounding him, his henchmen won't touch him even when they know he's arranging their demise and torching their pay, and both Batman and Harvey pass up the chance to kill him despite the blatant opportunities he hands them on a silver platter, even though they are willing to kill others. The irony isn't that Gotham wants the Joker to succeed, it's that their collective incompetence and refusal to do anything to really stop him ensures that he will. So given how rife the film is with absurd irony, why don't we notice? What is clouding our ability to recognize it, and how do we learn to spot it not just in The Dark Knight, but in other films too? First, The Dark Knight is a sequel to Batman Begins, which was regarded as a gritty, realistic drama rather than an absurd or ironic comedy. Even if Wayne Tower changes shape and color between films, audiences expect that the sequel will mirror the tone of the original and are therefore preconditioned not to look for humor. That being said, key members of the film crew often change between installments of popular franchises, like Harry Potter and James Bond, and that often creates tonal inconsistencies. In the case of the Dark Knight trilogy, the writing credits slightly change between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, as do the art directors, set decorators, and producers. So, if you approach a sequel as its own piece free of preconceived expectations arising from its trailer and earlier installments in the franchise, it's easier to spot tonal shifts and subtle humor that might otherwise fly under the radar. The second reason we don't notice the irony in The Dark Knight is because it shapes our perception of its characters' morality by telling us what we should think of them instead of showing us why. Consider what everyone says about Harvey Dent.
We all know you're Gotham's white knight.
Gotham needs heroes like you.
I believe in Harvey Dent.
You're the symbol of hope. How does it feel to be the biggest hero in Gotham?
I took Gotham's white knight.
Because you were the best of us.
The Joker took the best of us and tore him down.
But when do we ever see Harvey do something truly heroic? The only reason he garners such admiration seems to be because he stood up to the mob and indicted hundreds of criminals. But when you remember that the only way he could achieve this was by asking a vigilante to commit an act of terrorism, the notion that he was ever a white knight in the first place falls apart. Instead of demonstrating Harvey's moral integrity through his actions, the filmmakers relied on other characters to convince us of his virtue, hoping that repeated praise would make us overlook or forget his nefarious actions when he was supposedly still on the side of good. If Harvey wasn't constantly revered as a white knight, would we as the audience really see him as one? Consider other films where characters are described one way only for the truth to reveal the opposite later. Take whatever a character says about another character with a grain of salt. Instead, evaluate that character on what he or she actually does, because actions always speak louder than words. The final reason we don't notice the absurd irony in The Dark Knight is because of Heath Ledger's Oscar-winning performance. When an actor nails a role so completely that viewers can't take their eyes off him, something interesting happens. The audience stops recognizing or caring about whether or not the plot is full of holes, because they are far more focused on enjoying the actor's electrifying performance. In these rare instances, the character can get away with just about anything, whether it's killing a bank robber with a school bus, or burning the money he needs to pay his henchmen with right in front of them, and the audience will accept it without recognizing the absurdity. But if that actor is miscast and gives an underwhelming performance, then plot holes and gaps in character logic stand out considerably more, and the audience becomes much less forgiving. After all, if a lesser actor than Heath Ledger had been cast as the Joker, do you think The Dark Knight would still be considered a masterpiece? Regardless of how stellar an actor's performance may be, you can always spot the irony by asking what you would do if you were that character. For example, if you're Batman and your one role is not to kill, are you going to fire a tank at criminals and crush a garbage truck driver to death? Or if you're Harvey Dent and you know certain cops are working for the mob, are you really going to let them drive you home? Such absurdity is often even more apparent when considering the logistics behind the villain's plans. For example, the Joker's plan to murder a guy with a school bus requires figuring out some way of placing the guy in a very specific spot at a very specific time, and then hoping he'd be both blind and deaf to the sight and sound of a bus rushing at him. Likewise, the Joker's plan to escape from a police station requires planting a cell phone bomb inside a man's stomach and arranging not only for that man to murder a police officer on the same day he might get captured by someone he thought he killed, but that this person will be sent to the exact same police station and put in the same holding cell that he will be. Ultimately, the reason we don't notice the absurd irony is because allowing ourselves to become immersed in the world of a film means shutting off our brains and blindly accepting whatever is presented without question. This is, of course, a perfectly fine way to enjoy a movie, but if you resist the urge to be passive and instead actively question the logic of what you are being told and shown on screen, as well as what expectations were set from the trailer and earlier installments in the franchise, then the absurdity and irony will likely become very obvious very quickly, and it can make you see the film in a whole new way. If you want it to. That is. But what do you think? If you were writing The Dark Knight, would you embrace the absurd irony or patch up the plot holes to make it more realistic? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please check out my other videos on the Dark Knight trilogy, and subscribe so you will be notified when my video on what the Joker is really after in The Dark Knight goes up. Because if you think it's all about causing chaos or watching the world burn, think again. I'll post the links in the description below once the video is up. Hope to see you there.